Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are discussing about the latest developments surrounding the Vietnamese dong exchange rate, the growing speculation about a possible Vietnamese dong revaluation, and the newest updates connected to the Iraqi dinar revaluation discussions that continue attracting worldwide attention from currency watchers, investors, and global market analysts. Over the past several weeks, both Vietnam and Iraq have remained in the spotlight as international investors closely monitor economic reforms, central bank activities, trade partnerships, oil revenues, foreign reserve growth, and global political developments that could influence the future direction of their national currencies. The global financial community is once again paying very close attention to Asia and the Middle East, because several important economic indicators are showing major changes in regional financial stability, export growth, international trade relationships, and central banking strategies. Vietnam continues emerging as one of the fastest growing manufacturing and export economies in Asia, while Iraq is moving through another critical stage of banking reform, economic modernization, and efforts to strengthen investor confidence in the Iraqi financial system. These developments have fueled intense speculation online regarding possible future currency value adjustments, exchange rate reforms, and long-term monetary strategies. As we begin with Vietnam, analysts say the Vietnamese economy has continued showing strong resilience despite global inflation pressures and slowing economic conditions in some major Western countries. Vietnam has expanded its manufacturing influence significantly over the past few years, becoming an increasingly important production hub for electronics, textiles, technology components, and industrial exports. Many multinational corporations have shifted part of their operations toward Vietnam as companies attempt to diversify supply chains and reduce dependence on single-market manufacturing strategies. This rapid industrial growth has strengthened confidence in Vietnam's long-term economic trajectory. Foreign direct investment into Vietnam has remained relatively strong compared to several neighboring economies, and economists believe this trend could continue if infrastructure modernization projects and trade expansion efforts remain successful. Because of this positive outlook, speculation surrounding the Vietnamese dong has increased dramatically on social media, financial blogs, and investment discussion platforms. Some currency watchers believe that continued export strength and foreign investment growth may eventually encourage authorities to gradually strengthen the Vietnamese dong over time. However, professional economists continue warning viewers that a sudden, overnight revaluation event remains highly unlikely under Vietnam's current economic framework. Instead, experts suggest that Vietnam's central bank traditionally prefers controlled currency stability that supports export competitiveness while managing inflation risks carefully. Still, investors continue watching every signal coming from Vietnamese policymakers, especially as the country strengthens trade partnerships with major global economies including the United States, China, South Korea, Japan, and members of the European Union. Several international financial institutions have also praised Vietnam's economic management policies, especially regarding manufacturing growth and export expansion. This has created further optimism among those who believe the Vietnamese dong could become stronger in the coming years if economic momentum continues. One major topic generating attention this week involves discussions surrounding Vietnam's expanding role in global semiconductor manufacturing and advanced technology production. Analysts say that if Vietnam successfully increases high-value exports and strengthens technological infrastructure, international demand for the Vietnamese dong could gradually improve over the long term. Increased foreign capital inflows often help stabilize national currencies and improve reserve management for central banks. At the same time, financial experts continue reminding investors that currency value movements depend on many complex factors, including inflation rates, interest rate policies, trade balances, external debt levels, reserve holdings, and international market confidence. Therefore, while optimism about Vietnam's future remains high, any predictions regarding dramatic exchange rate changes should still be approached carefully and realistically. Meanwhile, another major area of discussion involves recent global currency market volatility. The US dollar has experienced periods of strength and weakness due to changing expectations surrounding interest rates, inflation data, and international economic growth forecasts. Because many emerging market currencies are influenced by dollar movements, investors are closely analyzing how future Federal Reserve decisions could affect currencies like the Vietnamese dong and Iraqi dinar. Turning now to Iraq, renewed attention toward the Iraqi dinar continues dominating online financial communities. Over recent months, discussions surrounding Iraqi banking reforms, digital payment expansion, oil revenue growth, anti-corruption initiatives, and international investment partnerships have intensified speculation about the future direction of the Iraqi currency. The Iraqi government has continued emphasizing economic diversification and banking modernization as major national priorities. Officials have repeatedly stated that Iraq aims to reduce excessive dependence on cash transactions while improving transparency across the banking sector. These reforms are viewed by many international observers as essential steps toward attracting more foreign investment and improving confidence in Iraq's financial institutions. The Central Bank of Iraq has also remained highly active in recent months, focusing on currency stabilization measures, electronic banking systems, and efforts to control illegal currency trading activities. Authorities continue monitoring exchange markets carefully as Iraq works to stabilize the dinar against external economic pressures and fluctuations in global oil prices. Oil revenues remain one of the most important drivers of Iraq's economy. Because Iraq is one of the world's largest oil producers, global energy prices continue playing a major role in the country's financial position. Higher oil prices generally improve Iraq's government revenues, strengthen foreign reserve levels, and increase the state's ability to fund infrastructure projects, public salaries, and economic reforms. Some dinar investors believe that Iraq's improving financial reserves and expanding regional partnerships could eventually support a stronger national currency. However, professional economists continue stressing that major currency reforms usually occur gradually and involve long-term structural economic adjustments, rather than sudden overnight wealth events frequently promoted online. This distinction is extremely important because social media often spreads exaggerated claims regarding instant revaluation scenarios, unrealistic exchange rates, or unverified rumors about secret banking announcements. Financial analysts repeatedly warn viewers to rely on credible economic information rather than sensational headlines designed primarily for internet traffic and speculation. Nevertheless, Iraq has made notable progress in several important areas. The expansion of electronic payment systems across Iraqi cities is being viewed as a significant modernization step. Banking digitization can help reduce corruption risks, improve transaction monitoring, and strengthen financial transparency throughout the economy. International organizations have repeatedly encouraged Iraq to continue modernizing its banking infrastructure in order to increase investor confidence and financial stability. In addition, Iraq has continued discussing large-scale development projects involving transportation, logistics, energy infrastructure, and regional trade corridors. Some experts believe that if these projects are implemented successfully, Iraq could gradually transform into a more diversified economic hub connecting Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. Such progress could strengthen long-term confidence in Iraq's economic future. Another important factor investors continue watching is Iraq's relationship with international financial institutions and global trading partners. Cooperation with international banks and organizations can influence investment flows, reserve management, and broader economic confidence. Any progress in financial transparency, anti-money laundering compliance, and banking sector reform is typically viewed positively by global investors. At the same time, geopolitical stability remains a major factor affecting investor sentiment toward Iraq and the wider Middle East region. Regional tensions, security concerns, and political instability can all influence currency markets and foreign investment decisions. Because of this, investors continue monitoring political developments very closely while assessing Iraq's long-term financial outlook. Back in Vietnam, analysts continue highlighting the country's rapidly expanding middle class and rising consumer economy. Economic growth is not only being driven by exports, but also by domestic development and infrastructure investment. Vietnam has continued investing heavily in transportation systems, ports, industrial zones, renewable energy projects, and urban expansion. These investments could help strengthen long-term productivity and attract additional international businesses. Tourism recovery has also contributed positively to Vietnam's economic outlook. As international travel continues recovering, Vietnam has seen increasing tourism activity, benefiting hotels, transportation services, restaurants, and local businesses. Increased tourism revenues can contribute positively to foreign currency reserves and broader economic activity. Currency analysts say Vietnam's central bank still appears focused on maintaining balance between export competitiveness and inflation management. A currency that becomes too strong too quickly could potentially reduce export competitiveness, which remains a vital part of Vietnam's economic model. Therefore, many experts believe Vietnamese policymakers will likely continue preferring gradual stability rather than aggressive currency appreciation. Meanwhile, in Iraq, discussions surrounding possible future currency restructuring continue circulating widely online. Some investors speculate about redenomination scenarios, banking reforms, or adjustments designed to simplify financial transactions and strengthen confidence in the national currency. However, analysts emphasize that any significant monetary reform would require careful planning, public communication, and broad economic preparation. The Iraqi government has also continued emphasizing efforts to combat corruption and improve administrative efficiency. International investors often view anti-corruption measures as crucial indicators when evaluating emerging markets. Improved transparency can encourage more investment, strengthen economic confidence, and support financial system stability. Another area attracting attention involves Iraq's increasing focus on non-oil economic sectors. Agriculture, manufacturing, transportation, telecommunications, and logistics are all being discussed as potential growth areas that could reduce Iraq's dependence on oil revenues over time. A more diversified economy is generally considered healthier and more stable for long-term currency strength. Global currency markets overall remain highly sensitive to inflation data, central bank policies, and geopolitical developments. Investors worldwide continue watching interest rate decisions from major economies including the United States, the European Union, China, and Japan. These decisions influence capital flows, investor confidence, and exchange rate movements across developing economies. In recent trading sessions, financial analysts have noted increased volatility in emerging market currencies as traders respond to changing expectations surrounding global growth forecasts. Concerns about slowing economic activity in some regions have increased demand for safer assets at times, while optimism surrounding trade recovery and technological investment has supported growth-oriented markets in other periods. Vietnam's expanding role in international trade agreements remains another major advantage, supporting long-term economic optimism. The country has positioned itself strategically within multiple regional and international trade frameworks, allowing businesses to access global markets more efficiently. This trade integration could continue strengthening Vietnam's manufacturing competitiveness in coming years. At the same time, Vietnam still faces challenges, including inflation management, infrastructure demands, housing pressures, and maintaining balanced economic growth. Analysts say sustainable development will require continued reforms, investment in education and technology, and careful monetary management from financial authorities. For Iraq, the road ahead also contains both opportunities and challenges. Oil revenues provide enormous financial potential, but economic diversification and institutional reforms remain essential for long-term stability. Investors continue watching whether Iraq can successfully modernize its banking system, improve investment conditions, strengthen infrastructure, and maintain political stability. Social media continues playing a massive role in shaping public perceptions surrounding both the Vietnamese dong and Iraqi dinar. Viral videos, speculative articles, and dramatic online claims often create unrealistic expectations among inexperienced investors. Financial professionals consistently advise viewers to separate verified economic developments from exaggerated rumors designed primarily for entertainment or online engagement. One of the biggest misunderstandings in online currency speculation involves the idea that governments can suddenly create massive wealth for currency holders overnight, without broader economic consequences. In reality, currency valuation decisions are deeply connected to trade competitiveness, inflation control, reserve management, and macroeconomic stability. Sudden dramatic changes could create severe economic disruptions if not supported by underlying economic fundamentals. That is why most central banks prefer gradual and carefully managed monetary adjustments rather than extreme overnight changes. Investors should understand that real economic growth, industrial expansion, export competitiveness, and institutional stability usually matter far more in determining long-term currency strength than internet rumors or speculative headlines. Despite this, enthusiasm surrounding the Vietnamese dong and Iraqi dinar continues growing because both countries are experiencing important periods of economic transformation. Vietnam is increasingly viewed as a rising Asian manufacturing powerhouse, while Iraq possesses enormous energy resources and strategic geographic importance that could support future development if reforms continue progressing. International investors are also watching how digital banking and financial technology expansion could reshape both economies. Vietnam has experienced rapid growth in mobile payments and digital commerce, while Iraq is gradually expanding electronic payment systems as part of broader banking modernization efforts. Increased financial digitization can improve transaction efficiency, reduce corruption risks, and strengthen economic transparency. Another major factor influencing future currency outlooks involves foreign reserves. Strong reserve positions help central banks stabilize currencies during periods of economic uncertainty or external pressure. Iraq's oil revenues have contributed significantly to reserve growth during periods of strong energy prices, while Vietnam's export earnings and foreign investment flows continue supporting reserve stability. Analysts also continue monitoring inflation trends in both countries. Inflation management remains one of the most important responsibilities for central banks because rising prices can weaken purchasing power and create economic instability. Maintaining controlled inflation while supporting growth is often a delicate balancing act for policymakers. As discussions continue online regarding possible future revaluation scenarios, experts emphasize the importance of understanding the difference between nominal exchange rates and real economic value. A currency's exchange rate alone does not automatically determine a country's prosperity. Economic productivity, industrial capacity, employment growth, infrastructure quality, and financial stability are equally important indicators of national economic health. In Vietnam's case, the country's long-term growth story remains closely connected to manufacturing expansion, export competitiveness, infrastructure development, and integration into global supply chains. If Vietnam continues attracting investment and expanding high-value industries, confidence in its economic future could remain strong for many years. For Iraq, future economic success will likely depend on continued reforms, political stability, infrastructure investment, and successful diversification beyond oil dependency. Iraq possesses enormous potential due to its energy resources and geographic position, but realizing that potential will require sustained institutional progress and economic modernization. Financial markets are also reacting to changing geopolitical dynamics across Asia and the Middle East. Trade negotiations, energy partnerships, regional cooperation agreements, and international diplomatic relationships can all influence investor confidence and currency market expectations. Both Vietnam and Iraq continue strengthening strategic partnerships with major global powers as they pursue economic growth objectives. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens in both countries are closely watching inflation, living costs, employment opportunities, and wage growth. Economic reforms are most meaningful when they improve real living standards for everyday people. Governments in both Vietnam and Iraq continue facing pressure to maintain growth while ensuring economic stability and public confidence. The banking sectors in both nations are undergoing important transitions as digital transformation accelerates globally. Online banking, mobile payments, and electronic financial systems are becoming increasingly central to modern economic activity. Improved banking accessibility can help increase financial participation and support broader economic development. Some analysts believe Vietnam may continue benefiting from global manufacturing diversification trends for many years. As companies seek alternatives to concentrated supply chains, Vietnam's strategic location, growing workforce, and expanding industrial infrastructure could attract additional investment opportunities. In Iraq, reconstruction projects and infrastructure expansion could create significant economic opportunities if implemented effectively. Transportation corridors, energy facilities, housing developments, and industrial investments all have potential to stimulate economic growth and employment creation. However, experts continue advising caution regarding unrealistic expectations surrounding instant currency revaluations. Responsible financial analysis focuses on verified economic indicators, policy reforms, reserve trends, investment flows, and structural development, rather than sensational claims promising overnight wealth. The future direction of both the Vietnamese dong and Iraqi dinar will ultimately depend on long-term economic performance, government policy decisions, international market confidence, and broader global financial conditions. Investors and viewers should continue monitoring official economic announcements, central bank policies, inflation data, reserve levels, and international trade developments when evaluating future possibilities. At the same time, it is undeniable that both Vietnam and Iraq are countries attracting increasing international attention due to their economic potential and strategic importance. Vietnam's rise as a manufacturing and export powerhouse continues impressing global investors, while Iraq's resource wealth and reform ambitions keep the country central to discussions about Middle Eastern economic development. For now, currency markets remain highly dynamic and sensitive to global events. Investors should expect continued volatility as central banks worldwide adjust policies in response to inflation pressures, trade conditions, and economic growth forecasts. The coming months could prove especially important for emerging markets as global financial conditions continue evolving. As discussions surrounding the Vietnamese dong and Iraqi dinar continue spreading across financial communities, viewers should remain informed, cautious, and realistic. Economic transformation is usually a gradual process, shaped by years of policy decisions, infrastructure investment, institutional reform, and market development. The latest updates from both Vietnam and Iraq suggest that important economic changes are indeed taking place. Vietnam continues strengthening its position in global trade and manufacturing, while Iraq advances banking reforms and modernization initiatives aimed at improving economic stability and investor confidence. These developments explain why international interest in both currencies remains extremely high. And with that said, this remains one of the most closely watched financial stories in emerging markets right now. Investors across the world will continue monitoring every signal coming from central banks, government officials, trade negotiations, oil markets, and international financial institutions as they search for clues about the future direction of these currencies. Thank you everyone for watching today's latest Vietnamese dong and Iraqi dinar update. If you enjoyed this analysis, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another major currency and economic update. Stay safe, stay informed, and we will see you in the next video.